Welcome to this week's. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's distribution demo. This week, what we are going to try is a new feature that we added to operator, which enables auto scaling. We had a bit of problem about that, and this issue has been addressed. And now we are going to follow the installation instruction. This demo, for the purpose of this demo, we are installing it from a branch. The MR hasn't been merged yet, but let's start without further ado. Let's begin with the installation instruction and do this. So I have checked out the status of the branch. Looks good. This is the branch. For the purpose of this demo, I am going to use the image tag of this branch, and I just checked out this. The pipeline was successful, so we have the image, and we can just grab the image from this demo. Yeah, good. So this is the cluster that we have. It's standard OpenShift 4.6. I think 4.7 is available, but I haven't updated it yet. So let me go ahead and follow the instruction. To install. Actually, I'm going to do something else as well. I'm going to use a separate namespace for this one. Good. Okay, we should be able to see the namespaces here. Good. The pod is okay. I see a failed mount here. Let's see what will happen. Hasn't been an error at the moment, but let's give it some time to start. No. This is actually a warning, but I'm not sure why this deployment doesn't come up. The cluster is not that busy or loaded. Okay, no, I have it. So now let's deploy the CR and look at the logs of operate. So for this, I think it would be easier if you use a stern. So chart is rendered. Go back here. The shared secret job is running as expected, finished. So far, everything seems all right. We just have this warning about extensions in the version of Ingress, but this is not something that is done, can be fixed in operator necessarily. I can fix it in chart, address it in chart. I'm not sure if we have an issue for that to update the version of Ingress.
Yeah, we have open issue to get all of the deprecated APIs that are being removed in 122.
Okay. And speaking of deprecated APIs, I think we also still using the for CRD extension, for API extensions, we are still using an outdated version, which throws a couple of warnings when we are trying to install the CRDs. But so far, we haven't had any issue. I think we have the HPAs here. Okay, so the HPAs from the chart are created. And as you can see, the target status is still unknown. So initially when the HPAs are deployed, the controller cannot get access to the metrics endpoint simply because not all the pods are reporting, or because this hooks in itself into Prometheus, and Prometheus at this point doesn't have anything to give to the controller, to HPA controller. So as you can see, this is right here. It cannot get any resource metric for the active pods, for the existing pods, which is okay. This is okay. This is all right. This is expected. Because the service is still rolling out. Let's stay on this. And this is across all the services. For example, GitLab shell right now, I think GitLab shell was all right. This is running, this is healthy. They're still on the same spot. In the meantime, what we can do, so just want to point out something here. This is coming from this change, and what will happen, the operator touches the deployment to make sure that the replica count are read, are inferred from the HPA. And when it does it, it touches the replica count of the deployment that it is reconciling. So it leaves a mark in the logs. So we can just trace this particular feature by looking at this log. So I'm going to do that. In the meantime, let's try see if we have the ingress. shouldn't be like this. As if the ingress doesn't exist. This is weird. It says the class of ingress is none. I am pretty sure that we set the class of ingress.
Newer Kubernetes versions have a dedicated property for this now instead of it in an annotation. But I'm surprised to see that impact OpenShift at this point.
To be honest with you, I'm not even sure that this is what we are seeing here, not having the application available is because of that. But this is something that is a bit off.
So what was showing you class none? Is it just you probably have like the latest kubectl running, right? That might be where it's coming from. Because like I said, in the newer the newer Kubernetes has it as a new property.
Could be.
I also see this when the web service pods aren't running. I know migrations were taking a little while to finish.
Yes, that could be it. But actually, I was expecting to. I'm not. Well, the message is kind of look like there is no difference between this one and the fact that the English doesn't exist. You know, it's just kind of. I was expecting to see something else. Ah, okay, here it is. If you look at here, the pod metrics are up. So it just the status is the condition is okay. The HPA is running. So the migration is complete. The web service is up. Let's try again. No. Hard refresh.
Did it create a route?
Nope. That's it.
Remember, it's not actually using Nginx in this case, right? It should be creating a route. It depends on where your MR is based, I guess.
I think it's based on the latest.
So you threw this into a new namespace. Do you have a load balancer for that namespace?
No.
Also, if you already had Nginx ingress running, the ingress class might not match the ingress class annotation on the ingresses.
Actually, we checked that out. It's Nginx. It is actually, isn't it coming from the GitLab spec, the CR spec?
That will set the annotation, yeah. But if you were running Nginx ingress from the subscription in the cluster before, and it was already running, then it might have a slightly different annotation.
This is a new cluster. This is a clean cluster. It wasn't running.
Okay.
We can just
Gotcha.
we can just retry that. But I created this cluster last night for this. No, this is a clean cluster.
So if you check the Nginx ingress controller deployment, like describe it, the args to it will display the ingress class. And then you can compare that to the annotation just to make sure.
Let's go to the namespace. It deploys in kube system, right?
I think default, pretty sure.
Sure, okay. This is the controller.
So yeah, the ingress class is nginx under the args to the container.
Mm-hmm.
So does the annotation on the ingresses match nginx, or is it like GitLab -nginx?
No, it is.
I know that was a problem in the past.
No, it is nginx.
Interesting.
Just to be sure. This is nginx, but I am what I was talking about with DJ is that this annotation.
You could check the logs of the controller too. I know whenever I deploy it, it says, hey, I found an annotation. Therefore, I'll just ignore the first class property. But there might also be some other helpful logs in the controller if it's having issues connecting.
Hang on, I just cannot get the logs of this. For some reason, I think this is a problem with K9s. Let me try instead. Do you have any particular thing that I can grab it with?
Just the name of the ingress.
So this. Actually, it has picked it up, right? This is error retrieving endpoint. Unsupported type. Could it be the versioning?
So what probably happened is that if you deployed using the CR specifies global ingress TLS secret name. And so it probably tried to set a secret name that won't exist. That sample CR is something that we primarily only use for CI. And so
what if it's
I believe there's an MR open. You can
because I just followed the documentation. I assume that this starts generating the self-signed certificates.
Yeah, the TLS secret name, if you didn't set it, should come out as an empty string. Therefore, it should come out in the template. If you describe the ingress,
I think it is an empty string. I think it's nil.
So if you describe the ingress, does it have TLS configured on that path?
Just let me go back. TLS. Sorry, I need to look at the YAML. I cannot really do this.
This would be on the actual ingress object in the namespace. So for example, the web service ingress, does it specify a TLS secret name for TLS termination?
Yes, no, I don't see the secret here.
It's like it templated out TLS for a certain host, but didn't give a secret name.
It has a TLS host, but it doesn't have secret. Because the secret is empty, I am not empty, it's null.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that block to be there at all. It's interesting.
Yeah, secret name is null. And oh, something else. I think let's look at the jobs. Well, the self-signed certificate job is not created, so it assumed that this the TLS secret should be there, even though it's not. I wanted to test it with the self-signed certificate, so it could be that.
Quick fix would probably be just edit the CR in the cluster and remove the ingress TLS secret name, and it should run the self-signed search job and fix the ingresses.
Great. Let's take a look at this, see if it has picked it up. Okay, yeah, now it has created shared secrets. No, it's not. It's not self-signed certificate.
It'll probably
This is
start
the issue with the hashing of with the digest of the job names, right? That it recreates the jobs. Oh, self-sign it up.
Yeah. It should run the self-signed search job after it does the shared secrets job. If it gets stuck in the controller manager logs, you might just have to delete the migration job so that it can recreate migrations-1.
Okay, it is stuck because the job is already exists.
Right. So I just delete it, and then the controller should be able to recreate migrations-1. It should also run the self-signed search job now that TLS secret name is not defined.
The self-signed job has been successful. I think it's finished. Yeah, it's completed.
And then we can double check the ingress to make sure that it took the TLS section off. If you start typing :ext in K9S, it should offer up the correct API version of the ingress that we're using, like the extension do1 beta 1. That way you don't tap into a separate terminal.
No. Hang on, let's just want to. This is finished.
Yeah, that's correct. So now it's going to use the wildcard that the self-signed search job needs.
So going back to it's just restarting everything. Let's just settle down. Okay, now it looks better. So basically, it just didn't ignore null. It tried to do something with it. So for the next step, what I'm gonna do, let's going back to HPA. HPAs are here. What I'm gonna do among these HPAs, registry actually has the CPU percentage cap. So I'm gonna use that one for testing the load autoscaler. And what I'm gonna do is to put some load on this. And by load, I mean something like this. We're just running a couple of DDs in the background. So I want to make sure that we are looking at the HPA logs. That's it, it should do the trick. So we should see some action. Perhaps I didn't put too much pressure on it. PS here. It is running. Okay, no, we have the CPU usage right here. It's going up. So autoscaler should kick in any second now, or I expect. I think the update that we did kind of created the lag here because we are back to the status. It's cannot really do it. It cannot again get the metrics. Okay, here it is. Started creating pods 4, 8, and 10 now. So autoscaler kicked it. What I'm gonna do, this is what was expected. I'm just gonna kill this. Now, we're gonna stick around and see what will happen, but I can tell you the end of the story because autoscaler generally takes some time. It follows a Pareto distribution. It takes some time to to really wind down the excess pod. It goes very up fast, but it comes down slowly. So now that we deleted this, these 10 pods remain active until autoscaler changes the number of replicas. That has a long tail.
Yeah, I think it's the default is 5 minutes, and that's only once it considers it stable.
So can I stay 5 minutes around, or I can tell you what will happen?
I was kind of curious about the approach. So now the GitLab controller will be setting the deployment replicas, but so will the HPA controller, right? Won't they be fighting?
Yeah, what it does right now, the approach is that for those deployments that have HPA attached or HPA monitoring them, it looks at the HPA status and reads the number of replicas from the status of that HPA and sets that when it wants to reconcile. I think the problem that we had, because what we have been seeing was that these pods were created and destroyed repeatedly, continuously. Because on one hand, HPA wanted, the HPA controller was increasing the number of replicas. And on the other hand, the controller, the operator, GitLab operator, the controller of GitLab operator was setting it back to the original value that was read from template. So what it does right now, when it reads it from template, it just consults the HPA status and sets the replica based on that. I think this problem also will happen with Helm. If we do Helm upgrade, I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure that it will happen. If we do Helm upgrade on a cluster, and this probably happens there as well. It starts killing the pods that were created with the HPA. Because the number, what HPA does actually, it directly touches the spec, not the status of deployment.
So the change you made in your mark isn't actually running like client.update on the deployment. It's just modifying the template that we reconcile so that it matches at the time that the reconcile happens. I see.
It doesn't change the template. It just filters it out. It just makes sure that if the object is going to be updated in the cluster, it matches the status of the HPA.
Understood. Yeah. So there could be a case where by the time it starts to reconcile, the HPA has made an adjustment, right?
Yeah.
In that gap between, got it. So an alternative might be if an HPA is set for deployment, then just remove the spec replicas from the template, right? So that when the reconcile happens, it will just keep whatever's currently in the cluster.
No, if we do that, it will fall back to the default, which is 1.
Got it. I expected when it merged the existing in the cluster with our template, if we took out spec.replicas from the template, it would just keep what's currently in the cluster, if that makes sense.
We are doing the patch.
Right. But
so
yeah,
if you want,
but our
if you
mutate
want to
function,
delete, you want to remember that we are dealing with the objects here, not just the YAML file, the YAML.
Right. Yeah, I was expecting that when we run the mutate function.
Yeah. No, that would be an alternative, but it would be more like an unstructured alternative. Just leave it to the patch rather than just make it clear that, you know, this is coming from HPA.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this makes sense, and it's nice that it's in the logs too, so we can.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're still there. We haven't. This is the running. So, should we create any issue for what happened with the Nginx secret name, or is it
something? You definitely can. Okay. Yeah, we definitely can. In my cert manager MR, I actually updated the installation instructions not to use the template that we use for CI, the CR
Okay.
template that we use for CI. So it doesn't include setting TLS secret name. So the user wouldn't actually set it unless they really intended to. But I think an issue would be totally fine just to confirm that this has been seen before. Since that's not
So
merged.
we have something that tracks this.
The cert manager kind of inadvertently, the cert manager MR inadvertently addresses that because the
Okay.
user wouldn't make deploy sample CR because that sample CR is mostly geared towards CI. If that makes sense.
Okay, awesome. By the way, the registry rounded back, so we just rescaled it back to 2 from 10.
Awesome.
Okay. Any other question? I think that this concludes our demo today.
Just a quick last one. So the metric server typically provides these metrics, right? But you're saying it's actually coming from Prometheus?
Yeah, OpenShift, what OpenShift does, it has a wrapper around Prometheus. So it conforms the API of Prometheus to metric server, yes.
And that's running by default with the new OpenShift cluster,
Yes.
effectively.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I haven't done anything to install that, so I am assuming yes.
Right. Yeah. So if you were like list all pods, I'm sure Prometheus or its wrapper is running somewhere.
Yeah. Actually, they are running because I started investigating this as an issue with the metric server rather than the deployment. I mean, I didn't investigate. I started investigating it not as a race condition between the controller and HPA controller, GitLab controller and HPA controller, but rather an issue with the metric server. So I have dug into that, and I think think it runs in OpenShift Prometheus or OpenShift Monitor namespace. So
Makes
it has
sense.
an adapter for that.
So I think by default with new Kubernetes clusters, it is not running the metric server by default.
No.
Is that true? I guess it depends on your flavor.
It depends on the flavor, but it is shipped as a separate piece of module which you can install. This is metric server, and I think if you go to if you go to Kubernetes documentation and you want to install HPA, it explicitly says that you need to have this piece of software running. So there is an installation instructions here. You just apply it, and that's it.
Because my understanding at the moment is that we don't have the ability to disable the installation of HPAs in the chart. And so if they're going to come out of the box, we might need to add a link to this for folks who won't be installing on OpenShift.
Yes. I'm a bit surprised that we haven't had that. So I am assuming since we haven't had any issue about that so far in the chart, unless I'm wrong, probably it comes packaged with almost every flavor of OpenShift. Kubernetes.
Yeah, early on we had some people run into it missing. So there are some closed issues where we just told people they need to have it. And I think it's listed in our requirements page for the chart as well, briefly. But I don't think we've had anyone raise any issues recently.
Sorry.
Even better.
Okay. I could just double check that, but I'm gonna do that later. So yes, the thing is OpenShift doesn't run this. OpenShift doesn't run this particular software. OpenShift has its own, which uses Prometheus.
Yeah, I linked one issue in the chat. It looks like our docs might not explicitly mention that you need a metric server to running for scaling to work.
Let's check out the docs of chart. Mention. Requirements.
I have to run, but thanks, Hussein.
Okay.
Appreciate the demo.
Thanks, everyone. It's by the way, it's not in the document requirements, but the thing is, I'm not sure if this is shipped as part of the newer version of Kubernetes or not. Yeah. No. Okay. Any other question, or you want me to test anything? All good.
Oh, looks all good.
Thanks everyone
Hussein.
for joining. And have a great day.
Thanks, Sam.